Good evening. I'm going to start the meeting tonight. I should say that we had closed session earlier tonight, so our meeting has been called to order. I'd like to start first by welcoming Dr. Pamela Nathan to the table as our new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Happy to have you here tonight and going forward. Tonight we're going to start our meeting with a little business. There was a decision issued by the School Ethics Commission and the Commissioner of Education that requires that a resolution be read at our meeting tonight. To do that, I'm going to turn it over to our Board Attorney, Mark Toscano.
Thank you, Madam President. Just by way of background, as the President just indicated, there was an ethics complaint that was submitted by another board member in connection with a communication that involved a district student. Just wanted to point out, so that there was no confusion with this, that the School Ethics Commission is the only body that can enforce the School Ethics Act. So if there is an allegation that there is an ethics violation, there has to be a complaint filed with the Ethics Act. Boards of education are not permitted to enforce the ethic laws, nor are they able to take action against any of their own members. That lies exclusively with the School Ethics Commission. In that respect, the district did receive notice from the School Ethics Commission and the Commissioner of Education that they had made a finding against one of the members, and that the board was directed by the Commissioner and the School Ethics Commission to have the following resolution read at its next regularly scheduled public meeting, which happens to be tonight. The Ethics Commission took action at its meeting on June 25th. Tonight is the first regularly scheduled board meeting since that time. So in accordance with that directive, which the board itself is obligated to follow under the School Ethics Act, we have an annual presentation every year, and remember that I try to summarize for you guys the ethics requirements. One is obey all rules. This would fall into that. So there is no action that is to be taken by the board. The resolution must be publicly read, and then will have to be publicly posted for the next 30 days. So with that, whereas Yu Taylor Zong is a school official as defined in the School Ethics Act, serving as a board member of the West Windsor-Plainsboro Board of Education, located in Mercer County, at all relevant times to the allegations in the above captioned matter. And whereas the above captioned matter arises from a complaint that was filed on March 1, 2018 by Anthony M. Flores, also a member of the board, alleging that Mr. Zong violated NJSA 18A 12-24.1G of the Code of Ethics for School Board Members. And whereas at its meeting on April 24th, 2018, the Commission ordered the parties' filings and considered the parties' filings and voted to transmit the matter to the Office of Administrative Law for a plenary hearing on the allegations set forth in the complaint. And whereas at the Office of Administrative Law, a hearing was conducted on December 3rd, 2018, at which time both parties appeared and offered testimony. And whereas on February 28, 2019, Administrative Law Judge Susan L. Alagati issued her initial decision and concluded that while sufficient evidence was produced to establish that Mr. Zong violated the confidentiality provision of NJSA 18A 12-24.1G, insufficient evidence was produced to establish that Mr. Zong violated the inaccurate information provision of NJSA 18A:12-24.1G. And whereas, based on the findings of fact and the legal conclusions in her initial decision, ALJ Olagatis recommended that Mr. Zong be reprimanded. And whereas, at a special meeting on May 2nd, 2019, the Commission voted to adopt Administrative Law Judge Alagati's findings of fact to adopt the legal conclusion that Mr. Zong violated the confidentiality provision of NJSA 18A:12-24.1G when he forwarded a message to his immediate family members about an incident involving a student that resulted in discipline and was subsequently shared by a member of his immediate family with countless others, and to adopt the legal conclusion that Mr. Flores did not provide sufficient evidence to prove that Mr. Zong violated the inaccurate information provision of NJSA 18A:12-24.1G. And whereas at a special meeting on May 9, 2019, and in order to impress upon Mr. Zong the fundamental importance of safeguarding confidential information, the Commission voted to reject the recommended penalty of reprimand in favor of a censure. And whereas by a decision dated June 18, 2019, the Commissioner of Education concurred with the penalty recommended by the Commission. And whereas NJAC 6A:28-10.12D provides that for a penalty of censure, suspension, or removal, a resolution shall be adopted at the Commission's next meeting following the Commissioner's decision, and the resolution shall be read at the Board's next public meeting following adoption by the Commission, and shall be posted in such places as the Board posts its public notices for 30 days. And now, therefore be it resolved that the Commission adopts this resolution stating that Mr. Zhang is hereby censured as a school official as a penalty for having violated the confidentiality provision of NJSA 18A:12-24.1G. And be it further resolved that the Board is ordered to read this resolution at its next regularly scheduled public meeting following the Commission's adoption on June 25th, 2019, and to post it in such places as the Board posts its public notices for a period of 30 days.
That brings us to our first opportunity for public comment. The Board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making the statement, which shall be limited to 3 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer, and this public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Okay, seeing as there's no public comment, we'll close that, and we'll now move on to our committee reports. We'll begin with administration and facilities.
Thank you. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on July 16th. The first thing we discussed was an Eagle Scout project to build a pergola at Wyckoff School. This Eagle candidate, presented his project proposal to the committee and pointed out that Plainsboro Township had approved the project and the student will be seeking approval from the Scoutmaster. The school district buildings and ground staff will also review the proposal and ensure compliance with the district's building protocols. And then the committee reviewed a number of policies. There were 2 recommended policies and 3 mandated policies and a mandated recommendation from Strauss-Esme. There were 2 recommended policies involving sending and receiving board members of school districts board members from sending and receiving communities, which we don't have any, so we table those. The committee recommends that the following policies, that list of policies be on the agenda for the first reading. There's physical and health education, practice and preseason acclimation for school-sponsored athletics and extracurriculars, educational program evaluations, commercial driver's license, controlled substance and alcohol use testing, and eligibility of resident and non-resident students. They're on the agenda for first reading. The committee also reviewed a number of mandated policy and regulations that simply involved an acronym change. The Electronic Violence and Vandalism Reporting System was changed in name to the Student Safety Data Systems. So we have a number of policies that just have that one change to it. We also discussed the non-affiliate policy F for a certain class of non-affiliate employees. We discussed we discussed it, and we're going to continue going on before we come back to the full board. The technology team continues to test the new security technology in each school. They're working closely with Matrix and Millennium to address some minor issues during each test. And testing will continue at each school, and training will be provided to the staff in September. We reviewed some referendum projects. Renovation projects at Town Center and Maurice Hawk continue to make progress. Town Center renovation remains on schedule for completion, while Maurice Hawk renovation is behind schedule. We're planning on, it won't be open for September, and I think that's been acknowledged before. The superintendent will be discussing progress and adjust the timelines with the construction managers and the architect later in the month. Community and Groveland Middle School's referendum planning is in its final stages of completion. Community's timeline for completion will be adjusted with the proposed addition of new parking area to the front and changes to the drop-off and pickup areas and athletic fields. Updating and/or adding generators and air conditioning is on schedule. Then we discussed the equity update. And the district hosted the first 2019 Summer Equity Professional Development on July 16th. And the topic was equity, conversation, reflections, and action. The next topic will be WWP America to Me, parts 1 and 2 on August 1st. We also reviewed a job description for a teacher resource specialist, and the committee recommends that we approve that at tonight's meeting. Any questions?
Next up is the curriculum committee.
The curriculum committee also met on Tuesday, July 16th, and we welcomed Pam Nathan, our new assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, and look forward to working with her going forward. First, we reviewed the upcoming professional development schedule for the summer and at the start of the new school year, including the district professional development administrative retreat on August 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and the new teacher orientation from the 26th to the 29th of August, and opening day, the opening day professional development on September 3rd and 4th. The committee next reviewed the superintendent's recommendation to allow a research project by Colleen Belmonte about it's called Teacher Interpretation and Application of Graph Behavioral Data. We learned about the project, which is a dissertation study. This study aligns with the work of the staff member and has IRB approval from Rutgers and all institutional review board protocols are followed. The committee recommends approval of the Charlotte Danielson Framework for Teaching 2013 as the evaluation instrument for all certificated staff except administrators, and of the New Jersey Principal Evaluation for Professional Learning as the evaluation instrument for administrators. The committee also recommends approval of 2 professional development consultants, Martin Chen, to provide 2 one-day workshops during the summer to the dual language immersion teachers regarding instruction in second languages at a cost not to exceed $1,000 per day plus travel expenses, and for Roseanne Zaviri to provide a one-day workshop on philosophy and high language techniques for Spanish foreign language in elementary schools at a cost not to exceed $1,000 plus travel. The committee recommends approval of several other professional development opportunities: the Reading and Writing Project Network training through Columbia University at a cost of over $135,000, and this contract, the 2019-20 contract consultant days and travel expenses, which will be paid through the 2019 Every Student Succeeds Act Title II grant funds, and the Reading and Writing Project Network to provide 2019-2020 professional development services for administrators according to state mandated professional growth plans at a cost of about $9,750. And again, also covered through the the Every Student Succeeds Act to grant funds. The Teacher College Reading and Writing Project to supply 90 tickets for the attendance by teachers and administrators to professional development workshops at Teacher College at Columbia this year at a cost of $6,300 paid through the same grant funding. Travel for staff members to attend Teachers College Reading and Writing Project professional development workshops at Teacher College at Columbia in New York during the next school year at a cost of $50 per trip. Again, paid through the grant funds. Foundation for Education Administration, FBA, to provide mentoring management services for new administrators in the district at a cost of $850 each. The district also agrees to reimburse new administrators for the cost of their mentor at $1,500 for the first year and $1,000 for the second year. 4 teachers and 1 administrator per session to participate in the Rider University Science Education and Literacy Centers and NGSS Assessment Professional Learning Workshop at Rider, and for 4 sessions during the school year at a group cost of $300 plus mileage. We also recommend approval of a 1 overnight field trip for Grover Middle School choir to the University of Delaware in Williamsburg, Virginia in May, and that trip is approximately $95 per student. And we also looked at the fall community ed programs and recommend the approval of those. And next we'll meet on Tuesday, August 20th.
Are there any questions on curriculum? I'll pass it over to Louisa for finance.
Okay, the Finance Committee did not meet. But staff shared some updates on Finance Department items, which I'll go over. Included were reviewing agenda items, the monthly reports. The year is tracking similarly as to recent years. The bill list is large because it includes the June 30th supplemental bills for the closeout of the fiscal year. There were additional broad grant applications that were completed in the amount of $143,000. There was also a motion for the use of the state contract above the bid threshold for furniture for the Hawk expansion and renovation project on the July 30th agenda. There are change orders for the high school sanatorium project as well as several for the Hawk expansion and renovation project. There are motions for disposal of equipment and transportation route bid awards and rejections, and there are several motions for staff summer and fall travel. The district sold 91 SRECs on July 10th. We sell these twice a year. These are sold with renewable energy credits. The district, for the 12th straight year, received the ASBO International Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, so congratulations to the staff on 12 years in a row. So you can't let that go ever, Chris, right? No pressure. Okay. Various other updates. The auditors started the audit on July 22nd. Capital projects continue with new construction as well as renovation to existing areas in both schools. The renovation portion of the projects have started in earnest, and the renovations must be complete for the beginning of school in September. Summer projects are progressing as well. For the Energy Savings Improvement Program, which we put out the RFP for that, 2 addenda have been set out, and the RFP due date has been extended from July 23rd to July 26th, and interviews with respondents are scheduled for August 2nd. The referendum, the second bond sale should be scheduled this fall sometime, and the amount needs to be discussed. I'm sure that we will be doing that at an upcoming meeting. The communication emergency notification system is being tested during the summer for implementation at the beginning of the school year. For merit goals, the Assistant Superintendent for Finance has submitted a merit goal application to the Executive County Superintendent for the successful attainment of the Meritorious Budget Award and Certificate of Excellence, which is also one of his merit goals, so he submitted this in order to get an additional 3% in salary. And that's it.
Are there any questions on finance? Do you have something?
Yes, I apologize, Madam President. I just had also neglected to just note, prior to entering an executive session, there was 2 items that were added to the executive session resolution that were not on the agenda that was available at the back of the room. So just now that everyone is here, just to make that announcement. In addition to the items noted, the board will also discuss under item number 4, matters concerning negotiations, specifically WPEA sidebar and WWPAA negotiations. So I apologize for that oversight.
Thank you. That brings us to the voting portion of our meeting. We're going to take things a little bit out of order. We have a personnel matter that we're going to bring forward first, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Adelholt for an introduction.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight it's my pleasure to recommend Kia Bergman as the new Director of Communication. Ms. Bergman joins us from Hillsborough Township Public School District, where she has served as the Director of Communications for the past 8 years. She brings to WWP a 20-year background in public relations, serving at the university level, corporate, and the public sector. She has a background in website redesign, social media, and school district communications. We are very pleased to welcome her to WWP. I should also say that she has served in a leadership position within the New Jersey School Public Relations Association. We're hoping for a mid-August start date and to have Kia join our team.
With that, we have to vote first. So with that, I'm going to need a motion on the recommendation to hire Kia Bergman as our new Director of Communication. Louisa and Isaac? Any questions?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chan.
Yes.
Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Hertz.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Jean. Sorry, missed that. And Ms. Kish.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we can applaud. Congratulations. Can I get please a motion on administrative items 1 to 10? Tony and Martin, are there any questions or comments on the administration items? Can you speak into your mic, please?
I'm sorry. On the transgender policy, I looked at the Princeton transgender policy and compared it to the one that we have for WWP. And I think it's better in that it's, well, for one thing, it's a page shorter, but also when instead of referring to the principal or designee, they refer to Princeton Public Schools staff members or counselors or psychologists or school administrators. And I think that for a student to come forward and say that they're transgender is a very brave thing to do, and we should respect them and let them talk to a psychologist or a school counselor or a school nurse and not necessarily a principal who's an authority figure. In the Princeton public school policy, that's what they say public school staff members. They don't say the principal, or then they say psychologist or guidance counselor. And I just think that's a more appropriate policy to have for the students.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I want to find a word to say that person.
He's the chair of that committee, so.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see where it was referenced.
It's on page 3, in the second paragraph, in the bottom 2 paragraphs, and then it's on the next page. It's on page 5 also, and on the top of page 4. The other question I have is that on the very top of page 3, it says, there is no affirmative duty for any school district staff member to notify a student's parent of the student's gender identity or expression. Then in the very next paragraph, it says, the principal or designee will make a reasonable attempt to engage parents when a student informs the school of their name or gender change. But the principal or designee will not risk violating the student's confidentiality. I don't understand how that could possibly work. I mean, on the one hand, you're saying the staff member does not have to notify a parent, student's parent, about the student's gender identity. And then in the next paragraph, it says that they will contact the parents. So this seems to be a contradiction.
It does, it says it will make an effort to work with families, right? Reasonable attempts to engage
Yeah.
parents. So in plain language, we, by policy, by recommendation from the Department of Education, and I sat on that task force, one of two superintendents in the state of New Jersey that sat on the Transgender task force. One of the first school districts in the state that had a Transgender task force, and the host of the Transform for Trans Youth this past year. It talks about our responsibility to honor students' choice, gender identity, right, or expression. But there was also a recognition that there should be some attempt to work with families. But in no way would you risk outing a student to their families. So all this policy is talking about is you're going to have a conversation and work with a student to guide them towards a conversation with their family, to be a support for them. But if there's not comfort, there is no way that you force a student into that conversation.
Well, I think what you just said is a much better thing to say than what this says on this page.
That's what it says.
I
And
don't
that's
think
what the
so.
training would look like, and that's the conversation with staff, and that's how it works now.
There is no part where it says that the school should talk to the parents against the student's wishes.
Right, it says you shouldn't do that.
Right,
Then it says they'll make a reasonable attempt to engage parents.
right.
Through the
Read the first sentence, read the sentence
But
before that.
not risk violating the student's confidentiality.
Right,
Right.
so that you trying,
But if you're contacting the parents,
no,
you have
it didn't say you're contacting the parents.
it says you're making a reasonable attempt to
Through the
engage the
student.
parents.
When the student informs the school of the name change, but not, it's the read on, but not risk violating the student's confidentiality.
And if I don't, you don't mind, Madam President, just add a point to this. This was as a result of a state law that was passed prior to Governor Christie leaving office. He had memorialized all of what was general guidance that came out of the Office of Civil Rights. And he required New Jersey Department of Education and Department of Health to come up with guidelines that all school districts were to follow. One of these provisions does deal with the issue of contacting parents. And where it came from, at least in the guidelines and materials that came out, was there was a real fear that under prior versions of the statewide policy that was adopted by school districts in response to the Office of Civil Rights guidance during the Obama administration's presidency, that children who identified as transgender were being placed in situations of harm because at that time the guidance was for schools to reach out and to contact. And there was a real concern that it could, depending upon how parents would react to that, there was a real concern for the students' safety. So that's why the policy may seem like it's talking out of both sides of its mouth a little bit, where it says you're going to respect the privacy, but you're going to try to work with the parents. It's rooted in that concept that was incorporated in the Department of Health and Department of Education's mutual guidelines. That's where that came from.
Well, the Princeton policy says that the board recognizes some transgender students have not disclosed their status to their parents. Whenever possible, the Princeton staff members should speak with the student to confirm the manner in which the student will be referred to in conversation with a parent or guardian.
Can I just ask one question? Is that, at the very bottom of that, is that from 2015? It should be on the very last page at the bottom, it'll have a date. That sounds like the prior policy. I apologize, I don't mean
It
to.
says 2015.
So what I would just say is that predated the law change that happened at the end of the Christie administration. So that was what everybody had adopted. And I actually spoke on that policy here in the district, when it was second reading, we were actually with the Grover Middle School. That policy is, that language is superseded now by the guidelines from the Department of Health and Department of Education.
I wouldn't be surprised if Princeton updates that policy to read more like ours. Maybe at some point there'll be a board
Just-
member there saying, hey, at West Windsor-Plainsboro,
Yeah.
this is what it is.
It just seems like it's contradicting itself. I mean, I think it would be better if it said that, you know, with the student's permission, you could make it a reasonable attempt to engage parents. It doesn't say that here.
It says that it's not going to violate the student's wishes.
Right.
Okay.
You think that's the same thing?
I think a lot
I
of
mean,
people-
this is saying that the principal or designee will make an attempt. It's like you have to make an attempt to engage the parents when a student informs the school of a name or gender change.
I just want to point out, the first sentence in that paragraph says that the school district believes that families are stronger when parents and guardians partner with schools in support of their children.
Right.
So, in the context of that, the principal or designee will make a reasonable attempt to make that happen. I think that's it.
With a comma and then a but that then says, without violating confidentiality of the student. And one of the reasons you want to partner with families, if you look at the suicidal rates of trans youth, it's about 40% attempts with attempts. So there's a real reason to try to build partnerships with families to support them with mental health support and making sure that counseling supports and whatnot are there. So the read-on rule is important here.
I just think that it's saying in the first line, there's no affirmative duty for any school district staff member to notify a student's parent of the student's gender identity. And then in the next paragraph to say, the principal or designee will make a reasonable attempt to engage parents. I think those two sentences contradict each other.
Now when you're working to build partnerships with families.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one says that the school district staff are not required to notify. That's what I believe, that there's no affirmative duty means they're not required to. And then the next part basically says, but they will try to engage them in a discussion because we try to do these things with families. But it's laying out that we are not required to do that. So that it seems contradictory, but it's saying sort of these are the, it's setting the range in this sort of weird, awkward middle place.
Yeah, I just think it could be worded a little less awkwardly.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flaherty.
Yes.
Ms. Hertz.
What are we voting on now?
Administrative items 1 to 10.
All
All
administrative.
administration. I'm going to abstain on number 6, which is transgender policy. And I'll vote yes on the other one.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Stuttering all of a sudden. Ms. Crew.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Ms. Cage.
Yes.
Okay, I'm back.
Can I please get a motion on the curriculum items 1 through 11? Dana and Carol? Are there any questions or comments on the curriculum items?
I have a comment on number 7, paying Columbia University Teachers College $135,000 plus $9,750 plus $6,300. I think that we should be looking at University of Pittsburgh Learning Center or UPenn. Their program, they both offer all the same services Columbia does, and I think that we've been using Columbia for 20 years, so it's probably time to learn what we can from somewhere else and get some maybe different perspective on things. I think we must have learned everything we could from Columbia at this point.
So we did talk about that in committee, so you know that that's not actually true what you just said, but,
What are you saying that's not true? Well, we've learned from them for 20 years, so I think that,
But their program evolves as well as our program.
I understand, but
It's
I
not
think,
static, it doesn't look the same as it was.
I think it would behoove us to learn from somewhere else at this point.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Hertz.
I'm voting, let's see, no on number 7 and yes on everything else.
Okay. Next is Ms. Ho.
Oh, yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Chen. Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Kish.
yes. Next up are the finance items. I just want to note that we have items 1 through 21, and we have a blue addendum which amends finance item 5E. It just adds in the agenda, the projects are listed, and the addendum is just adding in a few more projects. So can I get a motion, please, on finance items 1 to 21 plus the blue addendum? Louisa and Tony. Are there any questions or comments on the finance item?
I have a question on number 5B. 15 iPads, 38 Apple TVs, 38 Apple Pencils, 3 10.5-inch iPads, 8 10.5-inch iPads. Where are these iPads going to be used?
If I understand it correctly, it's extending the Apple initiative with the classrooms, with the TVs, with the Apples. Is that correct? That would be extending into third grade, I believe, correct?
Right, that's the third grade classroom implementation.
Yes.
I also have a question on the budget. It says the capital reserve is now $32,723,790. Is that where the money is going to come from to pay for the town center and the Memorial Stock addition?
Yes.
But it just hasn't been taken out yet, is that right?
Yes.
This is as of May 31st.
Yes. Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Chen.
Yes.
Mr. Flares.
I'm abstaining on 1A and voting yes on 1B for everything else.
And Ms. Hertz.
I'm voting no on 5B and yes on everything else.
Just real quick, Mr. Flares, there's an abstention on 1A and 1B?
Just 1A.
Just 1A, okay.
Okay, and Ms. Kish.
Yes. Next up is the personnel items and Charity mentioned that she has a correction.
Yes, I have a verbal correction for, on the regular agenda, the white, page 2. You'll see the appointment of a school psychologist, Victoria Nicosia. She is replacing Susan Kemmler-Sibry, not Desiree Sobel. That's a typo. Just make one note.
Thank you for the correction. So I need a motion on personnel items 1 to 4, plus the pink and green addendums. Martin and Louisa. Are there any questions?
I have a question about the comprehensive equity plan. Could you explain what it is and what the process was and who worked on that?
Sure, so the board has already submitted a approved the submission of the May meeting of the Comprehensive Equity Plan to the County Superintendent. And you'll see on the agenda tonight the approval of the acceptance from the County Superintendent as well as the Statement of Assurance. The Comprehensive Equity Plan is submitted every 3 years. It's a way for us to make sure that we're in compliance with the state and federal laws. There's a whole number of them, that we have to make sure that we are providing equitable programs. And that could be based on our policies, it could be based on the way we train our teachers. There's a staff development section, there's a hiring practices section, and also curriculum and school practices. So this comprehensive plan, you have to do a needs assessment, and I'm the district affirmative action officer, so I make sure when it's time for us to do our new plan that we do the needs assessment according to the criteria established in the plan. And we look through and we see all the different opportunities that show, different forms of evidence that show that we are in compliance. And I'm proud to say that the plan that you reviewed that was submitted is full of activities and examples of ways that we do ensure equity across curriculum hiring practices. And if there is anything that we find that we need to improve, those things could be because we have upcoming changes that are on the horizon that we know that are going to take place within the next 3 years. We will indicate them on the plan, which we did, and we will have a plan for addressing them going forward. So the county superintendent did accept the plan, said it was great with Dr. Adderhold, and that's what you'll see on the agenda tonight. Is that
you put the plan together, did you?
we have on the plan that you reviewed does show the committee that is made up of the affirmative action officers and of me, and also people who would have the best understanding of what those criteria, the evidence is. Much of the items that you saw in the plan is ongoing. We've been doing many of these things for years. So we just checked. So Mr. Earl helped me go through and look at the policies, and he said, you can see some of that you were looking at tonight. And we're making sure that we're in compliance with any changes. And we've met with our teachers, our supervisors, some of them not even listed on the team because we wanted to reach out and ensure, but the people listed are sort of my heads, and they've checked with everybody. And
So have we just completed the first year, or we just started the first year?
we're just starting the first year of the 2019-2022 plan. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Chen.
Yes.
Mr. Flores.
Yes.
And next is Ms. Hertz.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes. Can I please get a motion to approve the board minutes for the public meeting only on June 25th? Tony and Dana? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions? Are there any liaison reports? New business? That brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. 15 minutes will be provided at the end of our meeting for public comment. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making the statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Joanne Lasky, Fort Westminster. I can talk louder. Okay, so, it's very quick. Hi, everybody. Joanne Lasky, Fort Westminster. I am here on behalf of Community Middle School, PTSA. There was a reference in the curriculum administration report, about parking and traffic discussion at CMS. And I submitted on behalf of the CMS PTSA a list of rough notes to the administration back in May. So there's a part of a group of concerned parents who have gotten together. And I'm curious if you could shed additional light on what that is as we're heading into fall and there's already an issue of traffic and parking, et cetera, and I know the referendum changes are coming, so I'm just curious, since it was mentioned, if it's possible to elaborate.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bean, and I represent the Windsor-Plainsboro Administrative Association. And tonight, I'd just like to officially, on behalf of all the administrators, welcome Pamela. This is her first board meeting, so it's our first chance to really welcome her publicly and say that we're very excited to have her on board. We know she's going to be a great part of the team. We've already gotten, started enrolling, and the administration is 100% behind her, and we're really happy to have her on board. So welcome aboard. Also the same for Kia. Since she left, I welcomed her outside. So, but I'd like to say publicly that we are all on board with Kia too. We're very excited to have her experience to come with us and to help us with our communication. And we're looking forward to really gelling as a team. So thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Samistrali. I'm president of the Teachers Association. And please make sure the camera doesn't get my shorts because I look much more professional with the shorts. I'd like to add a little, perhaps, teacher perspective to the transgender policy. And one of the things that I did like in the policy was where you brought it out. There is no affirmative duty. As a teacher, I consider I have an affirmative duty to report anything I'm sorry, I forgot the current phrase. That I have an affirmative DCPD, thank you. I have an affirmative duty there. However, in such a sensitive matter, I was glad to see that I don't have an affirmative duty because whether I'm a language arts teacher, a social studies teacher, or a grade level teacher, and a student makes a comment to me that they want to be identified in a different gender, I don't want to have the obligation of reaching out to the parents, but maybe reaching out to the counselor and to the principal, because I don't know the full background of the student, and I would prefer to go through the proper channels to have that discussion. So the way I read affirmative duty, that I as a classroom teacher or a staff member should not feel obligated to quote out the student or to have that discussion without bringing it to the larger educational community. I just wanted to share my perspective on the use of that phrase, affirmative duty.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, we'll close the public comment period, and I believe the superintendent would like to address them.
Just wanted to provide some updates to Ms. Lasky's comment. So we have been working with our district engineer, Van Cleef Engineering, who works with our district architect regarding a contract for the traffic study. The traffic study is being finalized now. We did submit feedback that was received from the CMS PTSA to them. But very early on in the traffic study, there was a definite recognition that the North Millstone CMS campus does present some challenges where the driveway comes in play. So they are making some recommendations that will be brought forward to the Administration and Facilities Committee, ultimately to the Finance Committee. I expect them to be at the September committee agenda meeting and will be publicly reported out at the September board meeting. I have asked the board, the district architect and the district engineer to be present for a future public meeting. I'm waiting for a date because I do think it warrants more of a public presentation on that particular topic. I asked them to do an analysis of the fields behind CMS to see if there's a way to maximize fields. One of the things that you always have to be careful about is the potential of taking a field to add parking. If we look at the utilization of the field front left at CMS, there may be an opportunity to pick up a significant amount of parking space by maximizing field space behind and redoing some of the field configurations in the back. So we can still have the same amount, if not more, playing field space allocated, but also pick up parking because, quite frankly, we're already at a point where we are out of parking today. And its point is well noted that without doing something additional to parking and driveway and drop-off, the concerns with parking are going to persist. Not only parking, but drop-off. And the nature of North and CMS, the way the roads are aligned and the drop-off is aligned, is done in such a way that is problematic. I think it's already been noted in conversation with the engineer, the traffic study engineer, that he sees some immediate fixes needed. That money was not budgeted in the referendum. So that's why it requires coming forward to committee, the finance and A&F to talk about. I believe we have some opportunity with some ROD grant returned dollars to do something there. But we are waiting for some further planning. So we've had preliminary plans discussed with us. We've given feedback. We've had some study done in the fields behind, some of the drainage, some of the ADA compliance, site lighting, parking structures, and now it's just a matter of finalizing to bring a recommendation forward.
I just want to roll back a little bit to some personnel issues. I failed to acknowledge two people that I wanted to do, so I'll do that now. We have two retirements. The District Communication Support Specialist, Nancy Catalina, is retiring after 20 years with the district. And Dutch Neck Reading Recovery teacher, Taryn Nopamizo, is retiring after 24 years with the district. So I want to thank them for their hard work and commitment to WWP, and I wish them well in their retirement. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? All right, we'll just step in. Lisa and Tony. Thanks for coming out tonight. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Thanks for coming out. Our next meeting is about a month away, so we'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your